Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. Hope you had the opportunity to go over the 4 H's of financial freedom that we talked about last week. Again, that's on the Facebook group in the guide section. You can download that, review it, and then on the second page, there is the worksheet, if you will, that you can kind of get in a self-assessment of yourself of all those 4 different quadrants that we talked about. I'm going to go ahead and share that again real quick because, like I said, we're always going to kind of come back to the 4 H's as well as the treasure target. So what we're going to hone in on here today, let me scroll down here a little bit, is this avoid the use of debt. This section right here under the habits, we're going to talk about proper management of debt and how to really focus in on paying down debt. And you can look at the Bible verses there. Main one there, Proverbs 22:7. Talks about being a slave to your lender, kind of being a slave to your debts, right? Instead of having freedom. I'm going to post a document after this. I'm going to share parts of it as we talk through today, but I'm going to share it out on the guides section after this broadcast. And it's going to be talking about paying off debt. And so it's going to have everything I talk about here today, but it's going to have a lot more in there as well, a little bit more details than what I'm just going to cover here on the broadcast. So we're going to dive into the use of using the use of debt. And also, like I mentioned, we're always going to tie back to, our treasure target as well. So as you remember with that treasure target, that is diving into getting into your financial freedom. And if you look back on that treasure target, you're going to see on the bottom right-hand corner of that circle is the owed debt part, right? And on the owed debt part, it talks about repaying credit cards and then repaying credit cards and everything other than mortgage, and the last ring is paying off the mortgage. We're going to kind of talk through that, especially concentrating on that last ring of repaying the credit card debt. All right, so let me stop sharing this real quick, and then we're going to get into some little other things here in a minute. All right, so debt, it's a huge problem here in the United States. There's a good chance that you probably have financial debt, and I can make that bold statement because with the research that's out there in the United States, there's about 15.25 to $15.5 trillion worth of debt sitting on consumer debt. It is, I should say, the consumer debt, and that equates to people on a yearly basis paying overall $120 billion worth of interest. Now, we could do a lot of good things with $120 billion, but yet we're paying interest on this. And also, I want you to reflect back on the opportunity cost. When I say that you're paying interest, what's the opportunity cost of what that money could be doing? Something to think about as well. And then on average, Americans have about 3.4. That sounds kind of crazy how you have a 0.4 credit card, but it's just doing the math. About 3 to 4 credit cards most people have, and they're carrying an average of about $8,900 balance on there. Some have an extreme amount, more than that, hundreds of thousands, and some have a lot less. So that's kind of the average. But it's been kind of its own little pandemic in the United States on the financial side. And it's caused a lot of financial stress for a lot of people. And you can't really have, financial freedom or be less stressful about your finances without getting rid of that debt. And there's a good way, to be doing that, right? All right. So, what does the Bible say about debt? So when you look at the Bible verses, and after we review some of the core verses, and then the guide I'm going to be posting, there's going to be several different verses that you can reference there about debt. It actually does talk about debt. It doesn't totally forbid debt. It does in a couple. Kind of sounds that way in a couple verses, but it does talk about caution against it and using it because while it doesn't say it's forbidden, it does say you're kind of enslaved to it, right? So it highly cautions against debt. And then generally, its overall theme is taking on debt is generally a bad thing, right? So we're going to talk about that and how to get out of debt, right? So let me pull this up here. Let me just change my screen over here a little bit and pull this up. All right. So we're going to talk about a couple different methods of paying off debt. First one we're going to talk about is the debt snowball method. So what exactly is a debt snowball? Well, you kind of know what a snowball is, right? But if you roll a little ball of snow and you roll it down in the snow, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Well, we're going to do that in reverse of paying off your debt. It's basically a 5-step approach where in this particular method, you're going to choose, you're going to list out your credit and categorize them in by the lender, what your balance is and what the minimum payment is on those. And then you're going to attack it by choosing the smallest balance first. Okay. You're going to attack that by choosing the smallest balance first. The alternate approach is called a debt avalanche, where you're choosing the highest interest rate first. I personally believe that the debt snowball is much more effective, and I'm going to reference a couple of things here from a psychological standpoint. It definitely is. From your mindset, when you're seeing progress, the human nature is we do a lot better. There's a lot, but while the debt avalanche approach may save you just a small amount of money over the long run, and again, it's a small fraction, but the success rate of using the debt snowball is way better than the debt avalanche because it's all psychological. You see the progress more, you get the sense of accomplishment more, you're knocking things down, and so it's a mindset. So the research shows that the debt snowball by far is much more successful because it's motivating, and you can see the progress. And here's one of the references here back from Blake McShane and David Gallagher. They're professors at Northwestern University in their Kellogg Business School. They did a lot of studies around this. That's where some of the stats came from as far as the success rate of the debt snowball method, right? So basically, let me scroll down here a little bit, and you'll get this whole document. Step one, like we talked about, you're going to list all your debts except for your home. Don't put your home on there because that's a separate category. We'll talk about mortgages and how to utilize them later, and when to pay them off, if to pay them off, how to use equity. We'll talk about that later in another session. But you're going to list all your debts in one column from smallest to largest, right? Then you're going to list what your minimum monthly payment is on each of those, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to start attacking what the smallest balance is. You're going to pay that. Obviously, you're going to have that minimum monthly payment. You're going to add to that. Try to do at least $100 or more that you're going to add to that minimum payment. Obviously, the more you do, the faster the snowball is going to roll, and the faster you're going to pay it off. That's just the math. So the more you can do, and sometimes it takes a little sacrifice. What can you sacrifice to add and not just pay the minimum? What can you sacrifice in your budget in a month? This goes back to the tracking. You got to know what you're spending your money on, right? What can you sacrifice to tackle your debt, right? So you pay that extra to the first small balance. Once that small balance is paid off, you're going to take everything that you're paying on that one and start attacking the next one. Meanwhile, you have to obviously be paying your minimum payment on all the other debts you have. You don't want to go late or anything like that. But then as you pay off the first one, take everything that you were paying on that one, the minimum payments, the extras, all that, and apply it to the next biggest, the next smallest balance, I should say, the next smallest balance. Once the second one's done, take everything you've been paying on that and apply it to the next one on the list. And you'll be amazed how fast it starts going. And you get a sense of accomplishment. You can have a little celebration every time you pay one of these little guys off, right? And that's what the formula shows, is shown here. It's amazing how this can work for you from a psychological standpoint. Highly encourage you to use this method. All right, I'm going to stop presenting here real quick. Let me pull up a couple other things. That other study that was done, it was actually done it's a Harvard study. I'm just going to quote something here that they said that humans are usually more propelled by progress and the perception of progress than hard facts and statistics. Meaning this kind of relates to the snowball versus the avalanche, right? And then here's the quote from him. The study concluded it's not the size of the repayment or how little is left on the card after repayment that has the biggest impact on people's perception of progress. Rather, it's the portion of the balance that they succeed in paying off. Thus, focusing on paying down the account with the smallest balance tends to have most powerful effect on people's sense of progress. So again, it's two different studies from two prestigious universities that kind of back the methodology of the debt snowball. So highly encourage you to look at that. So I'm also going to pull back up here. Let me pull this screen back up. All right, let me go down to the bottom. You'll see the explanation of the debt avalanche on here. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to give you a little sheet here. Again, you'll be able to download this from the group's guide section. You can do this on your own. You can create a spreadsheet. You can just write it down. But here's a quick little sheet that you can use to list out the debt snowball piece, right? The other people think, oops, I'm sorry, I wasn't sharing there. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that document, here's a little sheet that you can use to list out those documents. This is at the bottom of the guide. You can use your own spreadsheet, you can list them out, whatever, but this is going to be in the guide that I'm posting out there for you guys, right? Something quick and simple, down and dirty that you can do. All right. The other aspect of the debt management piece is people ask about debt consolidation versus doing the debt snowball effect. Well, debt consolidation, that's an option. However, what happens is a lot of times it can have a negative effect on your credit because you're opening up another credit account, and the credit score just sees that as shifting around. We're going to go over credit scoring and the impacts of your credit score and what impacts your credit score on another session. So debt consolidation is an option, but it doesn't have that psychological effect. Really, it just puts everything in one big bucket, and it's harder to take that bite. You're taking small bites at a time. You don't see the progress. So I generally don't recommend that. There's also the debt counseling. Now, there are some nonprofit debt counseling. There's some Christian nonprofit debt counseling, and those are fine as a last resort if you're in some desperate need of relief. It's far better to do that than do bankruptcy. But that has an impact on your credit as well, because what that happens is they go to your creditors and ask for different terms. Then your file with that creditor is flagged, that then goes to the credit bureaus, and it can have a negative effect. So that would be used as a last resort. If you have more questions about that or need help around that, I'm more than happy to share how to go about that and what the impacts are. Okay. So that's another side. So the other side of this is, is all debt bad? Well, no, the revolving debt, credit cards, on personal loans, on store credit, those kind of things, generally, yes. Mortgages, no, that's going to be advantageous. We're going to talk about mortgages and the use of those, like I said, a little bit later. One thing I highly recommend is do not take out store credit cards. Their interest rates are huge. And then you also have all these promotional things. Hey, you get 0% or low percentage for a certain amount. And then after that buy-in period happens, or that promotional period ends, interest rates skyrocket. And actually, personal loans and those store credit cards hurt you a little bit worse on your credit than the regular cards. My personal recommendation is, when I've seen successful, is once you get this debt snowball taken care of and you get your debt paid down, is keep one credit card. You want to have at least one credit card. Whether you're renting a car or doing a hotel or whatever, you get a little bit better fraud protections. And if you're very disciplined, you can use your credit card to make payments on things and use the reward points to get you some rewards, whether it's cash back or travel or whatever it is you want to apply it toward. But you got to be disciplined. You got to pay that off every month. Once you get rid of your debt, then you can use that card, but you got to act like you're just paying your bills. Goes back to your tracking. You got to know what's coming in and out. You got to pay that off every month, right? That way you get some rewards. If you don't think you're disciplined enough to do that, then don't do it, right? Just pay like you normally would with your bill pays. But you want to have at least one credit card. I don't recommend having more of that. Definitely stay away from the store credit cards. It's just, and personal loans, if you can avoid it, that's just a trap. I get it. Everybody's going to have debt. We've all been there. But it's just a matter of taking the bites and knocking this down. Debt snowball is a perfect way to do that. Okay. So guys, I appreciate the time here. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about some debt myths. To kind of close this topic out, we'll go into the credit scores, and then I'm really looking forward to getting into some of these next topics. We're going to start getting into some exciting things. I'm going to post this document out there on the guide section. Again, if you go into the Facebook group, if you're on the mobile, it looks a little bit different. It's easier to find on a computer. On the top of the screen, you can see it's just listed as guides. And you just go in there, you can see all these documents that we're posting. It'll probably show up on the feed too as a document on the post. But later on, if it's buried in the feed, and go up to guides if you're on your PC or laptop or whatever, and you'll see it in there. It's under the Faith and Finance section. If you're on your mobile and looking for it, if you go to the upper left and there's a little, what I call hamburger menu, you go up there to the menu and it gives you some more options because the mobile screen is a little bit less, doesn't have as much real estate to show you everything. So that's another way to get to it. So again, guys, I appreciate it. Give me a hashtag live or a hashtag replay of how you're watching this. This will be posted back up on the Facebook group page immediately afterwards, as well as our YouTube page as well, if you can't find it on the Facebook group. So guys, if you have any questions, if this was advantageous for you, I hope it was, leave me some comments. Reach out to me if you have questions or need help. And I look forward to next week, and I look forward to diving in some more of these topics. We're covering the kind of some of the core financial basics here. And as we get through that, we'll start getting into some of the exciting stuff about making the money work for you, right? Guys, God bless. Have a great week and weekend.